Hey guys, it's Ruby and welcome to my Pilates inspired surf movement practice class today. All you're going to need for class is a pillow, yoga mat. We're going to be focusing today mainly on spinal articulation, a little bit of rotation, and a tiny bit of the legs, and core, and everything really. Let's be honest. Cool, so let's get into it. So let's come to stand with feet about hip distance apart. Let's imagine that we're a skeleton that's, a model that you might find in a physio or something, and you're suspended on a rope. So your skeleton is hanging there. Your spine is nice and tall. And we're going to put 60% of the weight in the forefront of the foot and 40% in the back. We're going to take an inhale here, and as we exhale, we're going to nod the chin to the chest and slowly begin to roll down, vertebra by vertebra. When we get closer to the bottom, it's totally fine to take a bend in the knees here, just anything that feels comfortable to you. We're just going to hang out here for a few breaths. Kind of imagine yourself as a jellyfish that's kind of flowing in the ocean, or a piece of seaweed. It's light, it's fluid. We're just kind of moving in a way that feels good. You might want to roll out your wrists. Remembering to breathe here. Going to roll our head to the left. And we're going to roll our head to the right. And imagining there's a helium balloon by your belly. As we exhale, we're going to slowly begin to restack with that helium balloon assisting us. Pelvis, spine, and head, reaching tall. Shake it out. So moving on to our backs now. We have a bend in the knees, arms go long by our side. Before we get into it, we're going to focus on finding our neutral spine. So we don't want our pelvis to be heavily tilted one way or the other. We just want to find a place where our spine feels like it rests naturally, somewhere that feels kind of effortless just to lie. And this first exercise that we're going to do is focusing on disassociation, which means that in this exercise, the movement's only going to be coming from the hip joint. The torso is going to remain really steady. I want you to think of those side abdominals wrapping around and into your belly button and maintaining that engagement throughout this exercise. Floating our legs into tabletop position, we're going to inhale, and as we exhale, moving only from the hip joint, knee bend stays the same. We're going to send the left leg away, inhaling back to center. Exhale, right leg away, inhaling back to center. I want you to imagine that you have a cup of tea resting on your pelvis, and you don't want any of that tea to spill. So that torso remains very, very still, and the only movement here is just that femur bone, that leg bone moving in the hip socket as the legs arc away and return to center. Exhaling away, inhale, return to center. Exhaling away, inhale, return to center. If you notice any tension in your jaw or pressing through the hands to kind of stabilize, I just want you to let that go and bring your focus back on those side abs wrapping around through the belly button to retain the control of your torso. We have 9, 8, spine remains in neutral alignment, 7, 6, deeper abdominals wrapping around, 5, through to the belly button, 4, 3, not a drop from the teacup, 2, and last one. Good job. Now inhaling, arms overhead. Exhaling, arms overhead towards the mat. Inhaling, back to center. Arms reach overhead towards the mat. Inhaling, back to center. Those top ribs remain in the same position, not popping out as the arms go overhead. And not pushing it too hard with the shoulders, just honoring where you're at, where your capacity is today. Just 4 more. Breath is smooth. And last one. Now for a bit of a coordination exercise here, we're going to send the left leg, right arm away on the exhale, inhaling back to center, right leg, left arm away, inhale back to center, exhale away, inhale back to center, exhaling away, inhale back to center. For 3, for 2, for 1, and hug it in. And taking a breath here before we move into the final variation of this exercise. So again, floating arms up to the ceiling, feet up to tabletop. Now with a very strong emphasis on maintaining that neutral spine, we're going to exhale both arms and legs away and inhale back to center. Exhale arm and legs away, inhale back to center. Deeper abdominals are wrapping around through the belly button. Five more. If you're fatiguing or your ribs are starting to pop forward, just don't take the arms and legs quite so far. And last one. And bring it in. Place your hands on your knees and start to roll those legs around in the hip socket. Doing whatever movement feels intuitive to you. And taking a few breaths here, in your own time. We're going to stay lying down, but make sure you've got some space in front of you and behind you. This next series here is about spine articulation, which means moving each segment of the spine with control. So arms arcing overhead, we're going to bring those arms up towards the ceiling, and as we exhale, we're going to begin to take the head, neck and shoulders off the mat, rolling up, rolling over a beach ball, and then restacking. Inhale to find length, and as we exhale, we're going to roll back over the sit bones like a cogwheel, slowly lowering ourselves back down, hands arc overhead. Exhaling, head, neck, shoulders off the mat, rounding over a beach ball, restack pelvis, mid-back, head tall. With control, slowly lowering ourselves back down, gaze follows through the hands. Inhaling here and exhale, segment by segment, rolling up through the spine, rounding over the ball, restack. Try not to just collapse like this. It's more of a subtle arching over rather than a bend at the hips. Exhale, we're going to roll back down. And with the gaze following through the hands, we roll up, arching over, stacking tall, rolling over those sit bones, sending the ribs back to the mat one by one. Last time, rolling up, restack. This one's going to be a little different. We're going to roll half the way down, scooping through the belly, and we're going to hold. Breathing smoothly, inhaling and exhaling, seeing if you can release any tension in the jaw. We're holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Roll back down. And the last and final variation, we're rolling up, over the ball, restack, and we're going to roll down slowly. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Head lands gently on the mat. Good job! Now bring those feet to the floor, knees bent. Hands are going to interlace around the back of the neck. We're going to begin to increase our thoracic mobility and our rib mobility into flexion, which is often quite a tough spot for surfers. Take an inhale, and with the weight of our head in our hands, we're going to exhale, head, neck and shoulders off the floor. We're going to inhale, arms like overhead behind the knees. Exhale, pulling ourselves into a C shape. Inhale, maintaining that shape, arms like overhead. And exhale, floating back down. So, head, neck and shoulders come off the mat, tips of the shoulder blades still on the floor. We're going to pull ourselves into a new space. Overhead. And back down. Exhaling, head, neck, shoulders. Overhead. Lower ribs still maintaining that connection with the mat. Back down. Think of sending the feet into the floor and make sure there's some space between your chin and your chest. See if you can keep the breath going without losing that connection in the abdominals. So moving through this final repetition, this one's going to be a little bit different though. Maintaining the shape, we're going to arc our arms to our head, to our thighs, to our head, to our thighs. We're inhaling, we're exhaling, scooping through the belly. Last two, last one, and take it down. Let's take a few breaths here. Let all that work sink in. Starfish out if you need to. I'm just going to move into one last final variation of that, I'm sorry. Just a tiny bit of oblique work here, floating the legs to tabletop. Taking an inhale, and as we exhale, we lift the head, neck and shoulders. Turning to the right, turning to the left, elbows sent wide, to the right, to the left, scooping in the abdominals. Once more, and back down. And in our own time, we're going to make our way onto our bellies for some prone extension work. As a surfer, I find thoracic extension really hard. I'm totally conditioned to do all of the work in the lower back. So this is a really challenging exercise for me. I don't have the most mobility here, but that's why we need to practice, right? So that we can improve. So, as I kind of mentioned, when we're paddling, we get really good at loading into the lumbar spine. So the bottom part of the back, we use our lower back so that we can lift ourselves high up our board so we can see and paddle properly. However, the consequence of doing this for a long time is that the mid part of the back, the thoracic part, gets really stiff. In this exercise, we're focusing on moving just from the mid back. So to sit up, I want our elbows to be pointed towards the back of the room. Don't focus here on trying to get too much height or extending just through the neck. Sending the elbows to the back of the room, finding that abdominal connection, we want to kind of create an opposition of forces. Imagine your pubic bone reaching out through your heels and your breastbone reaching out through your head. And as we exhale, we begin to extend up and out through the mid part of the spine and inhaling back down. Shoulders away from the ears. Exhaling, sliding the chest up, an imaginary skateboard ramp, and inhaling back down. Imagine that your bottom ribs are the feet in which you are standing upon for this exercise. Exhale, extending out and up. Gaze on the mat. Not a wrinkle in the back of the neck. So we really want that neck to be nice and long. Be really aware that you're not engaging that lower back, because that's what we're really used to, that's what we're good at. We want to be creating a new movement pattern here. And as you extend, imagine you're finding some length between the hip and the thigh. Six more. Inhaling at the bottom of the mat and exhaling as we extend long. Two more like this. And in this extended position, we're going to continue to breathe, holding for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, lowering yourself back down. And hovering the head, moving into a slight thoracic extension, we're going to move into some Ys and some Ts. So let's bring the arm to goalpost position. We're going to reach arms into a Y, into a T, into a Y, into a T, into a Y, into a T. Trying to breathe smoothly and keeping that lower back out of the equation. If you fatigue, just come down for a breath. Y, T, Y, T. Keeping that neck wrinkle free. We're going to reverse these Ys soon. And reverse Y, T. Reverse Y, T. Reverse Y, T. Going for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Relax it back down. And to counteract all that extension, let's move into some flexion. So coming into a nice juicy kind of child's pose. Knees can be about as wide as the mat. Just gonna roll, reaching forward. Having a few breaths here. And in our own time, we're gonna move ourselves into all fours. And this next quadruped exercise, we're going to be focusing on our shoulder mobility and our hip mobility, as well as our balance and awareness. Now you might think, oh, this exercise coming up is going to be a little bit easy, but actually if you do it properly, it's actually pretty difficult. So with our wrists stacked under our shoulders and our knees stacked under our hips, we're going to find that neutral spine. We don't want to be super flexed here. We also don't want to be sagging through the shoulders. So finding somewhere kind of in between, we're going to gently press the earth away with our hands. I want you to be conscious of the point at the top of your ribcage where the base of an imaginary sports bra might be, and I want you to pull that in, belly button sent towards spine, and maintain that connection throughout the sequence. So with that connection in mind, we're going to inhale, finding length in the spine, and as we exhale, we're going to send the left arm out, inhaling back to center. Right arm out, inhaling back to center. Pressing the arms apart to widen through the chest. Sinking the ground away with your arms. It's not so much about the reach up, but more about the reach out. 2 more. And back to center. Again, pressing the earth away gently, torso remains very steady. We're going to begin to send the right leg away, inhaling it back in, exhaling left leg away, inhaling back in. Long in the neck, no wrinkles. Last one, and back into center. Now imagining a bowl of soup on the back of your pelvis and in between your shoulder blades. You don't want to spill any of this soup. So, we're going to exhale, left arm, right leg away, inhaling back to center, pelvis steady, right arm, left leg away, inhaling back to center. Soup remains perfectly in that bowl as we alternate sides. Finding length between the sit bones all the way through to the tips of the ears. Working with your breath. Remembering to be conscious of that point in between the top of your ribcage. On this next one, we're going to hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bring it back down. Other side. Again, holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bringing it back down. Coming to your knees, maybe rolling out those wrists, shaking out those wrists. It's important in surfing that we have adequate rotation because the motion of rotating is what allows us to complete maneuvers such as cutbacks, which is essential for fluid and progressive surfing. If you could go and grab your pillow. Coming into a side lying position, we're going to place our head on the pillows, knees are bent, knees kissed together, hips are stacked, arms out long in front of us, palms kissed together also. We're going to inhale, and as we exhale, we're going to initiate a rotation from the rib cage. Arms are going to arc over in a semicircle, gaze follows the hand, arms stretched out like a bird. We're going to inhale, and as we exhale, initiating from the rib cage, we're going to rotate back around. Inhale here, and as we exhale, keeping those knees kissed together at all times, begin to paint a rainbow. Gaze follows the hand. Inhale to find length, and exhale, arcing back over. I'm going to roll through a couple of these in your own time. If you want to find more of a stretch, you can have an idea of the thigh moving away from the opposite arm. The idea here is that we move the body to move the arm, not the other way around. And when we get into that T-shaped position, our hands should be higher than our shoulder. Exhale as we spiral from the rib cage. Hand arcs over, gaze follows. And we're going to move into a few breaths here in this position. Just noticing with how each breath we seem to gain a little bit more rotation. Inhaling and exhaling, rotating back. Good job. We're going to move over to the other side now. Same setup as before. Knees bent, knees kissing together, arms in front of us, hands kissing together. Inhaling here, spine is long, and exhaling, we're going to arc that arm over as if we're painting a rainbow. Chest faces towards the ceiling, gaze follows the hand, inhaling wide, and exhaling, initiating through the ribcage, arcing back over to the starting position. Couple more of these. Lengthening the thigh away from the arm as we're out like a bird. In the last rotation, we're going to hold here for a few breaths. And slowly rotating back to where we started. Nice. Good job. So in this moment here, I actually got caught in a rainstorm, so I had to come back and film this section, but nevertheless, here it is. So I'm not going to focus too much on legs here. However, if you've ever caught a really long wave, you're going to understand that your legs do burn in surfing. It doesn't take very long for them to fatigue at all. So we're going to move into some squats here. To sit up here, our feet are going to be slightly wider than hip distance apart, and with our feet just the tiniest bit turned outwards. And as we continue through these squats, I want you to think of sending energy back through your glutes, and your abdominals should be on. On our next squat, we're going to hold, continuing to breathe, knees tracking with those feet. We don't want our knees to drop in towards each other. And I want you to activate those glutes. Now keeping low, we're going to start to shuffle forward and back, moving into some crab walks. Try not to collapse and bend in that lower back. We want to keep that alignment of our spine. Keeping this height now, we're going to pulse, checking those knees, abdominals on, activating through the glutes, breathing. 10 more. Then moving back into those squats, sending those hips forward, slight squeeze of the glutes to the top. Three more. And holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We're going to start sending those arms back, 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 and up. Squat, and up, squat, and up. And as you squat up, I want you to focus on driving through the glute, not just lifting with your quads. And have a second of a rest before we move into some more of the inner thighs. Feet a little wider. We're going to squat, knees track over the second toe. Feet tilted out to the side a little bit more than before. Six more. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then change it up. Coming onto our tippy toes, we're going to squat again, working through some ankle stability, some general balance. This time it's only the left heel off the ground. This time just the right. Notice if one of your ankles seems to be more stable than the other. It's definitely the case for me. This ankle seems to be much better. And coming into that regular wide squat, we're going to hold. Rising up, and then holding again. Rising up, and holding again. And last time, we're going to rise up and shake it out. So moving back to that original footage pre-rainstorm, we're going to come to lie on our backs, floating the feet up to tabletop position. We're going to inhale, find length in the spine, and as we exhale, we're going to send the knees and the feet overhead until the legs come parallel to the floor. I want you to gently press through the backs of your thighs to create more lift, more space in the spine. Taking an inhale here. And as we exhale slowly, we're going to lower ourselves back down towards the mat, coming into tabletop position once again. Again, Sending those legs overhead, parallel to the floor, slight pressing, length through the spine, and segmentally with control, we're going to send those ribs back towards the mat, trying not to overuse the arms and the shoulders as you roll back down. And rolling over rather than up without momentum, with control, standing across the shoulders, elongation in the spine. We roll back down. Inhaling at the bottom, exhaling as we roll over. Gentle press through the back of the thighs. Space between the chin and the chest. We send the ribs back one by one, blasting to land as a pelvis and to the tabletop position. Last time here, rolling over, finding elongation in the spine. And we're going to take a few breaths here, just noticing how our body moves in such an interesting way. And rolling with control slowly back down. And just lying on your back, take a moment. Let all the work you've done so far just sink in. Bringing the feet to the floor, bending the knees, we're going to shuffle those heels so they're a little bit close to our bum so that we can get into our bridging sequence. Imagining you have a marble in your belly button. We're going to inhale. As we exhale, we're going to roll that marble towards our chest, slowly lifting each segment of the spine off the mat until we come into a bridge. Being careful not to push your chest into your chin, so a little bit of a sinking through the sternum. Inhaling at the top, and we're going to send the upper back, the mid back, the lower back, and the pelvis back towards the mat. Again, same thing here. I want you to imagine your spine as a heavy linked chain that we're peeling off the mat. Sending energy with the hamstrings, remaining strong in this position. And we're going to drape that chain segment by segment back towards the ground, passing to land as a pelvis. Inhaling here, exhaling, tilting that pelvis, gently rocking up, peeling off the mat. And before you roll back down, I want you to think of sending energy through the knees, as this is going to help lengthen out the spine. So as you lower, sending energy through the knees, coming to land, and noticing how different that feels, how much more space you feel on the spine. And when we reach the top of our bridge, we're going to get into some marching this time. So before we do that, I want you to check to see if your hips are level. If one of your hips is sagging, you might need to engage the glute to kind of prop it up. Inhale to prepare, and as we exhale, the left leg is going to come off into a tabletop position. Inhale back down, exhaling off, inhaling back down, making sure your hips are staying level. This is actually a pretty difficult exercise. Noticing if you're beginning to sag through the sequence, and only moving at a pace that feels comfortable for you. You might need to take some time to really sit up before you lift the other leg off the mat, and that's totally fine. Form is much more important than speed here. Almost there. And take a breath and lower yourself back down on the mat. Great job. And stretch it out, bring it in, hug it in, and make your way up to standing, whichever way you choose. Bringing the feet hip distance apart, standing nice and tall, elongating the spine. As we exhale, we'll nod the chin to chest and begin to roll down. Most of that weight is in the forepart of the foot, remember. Till we find the floor, take a bend in the knees. Hang out here for a second. And we're going to begin to slowly walk our way out into plank. Remembering to press the earth away gently. We'll be rolling through some press-ups, so if you need to come onto your knees, please do. Otherwise, remain in full plank. I know press-ups aren't everyone's favourite, but they are such a direct translation to the pop-up. So with these press-ups, I want your elbows to be in by your side. So we're going to slowly lower ourselves until we hover off the floor. Slowly press up. And again, slowly lowering, hovering, slowly pressing up. If you find that you start to sag in the lower back, I want you to go to your knees. You want this movement to be as safe as possible. I'm going to roll through a couple of these, so like I said, if you get fatigued, just go to your knees. Remembering to find that abdominal connection here. This is really a whole body exercise, not just an exercise of the arms. See if you can do just 3 more. Try and lower yourself down at the same speed that you can press yourself back up. Final one here. Don't forget to breathe. And we're going to hold for a plank. For 3, 2, 1. And we're going to walk ourselves back up to standing. Rolling up. Stretching the arms overhead, arms back to the side. We're going to side bend one way. Breath here. Side bend the other way. Breath here. Back to center. And I want you to just take a few breaths here. Take a moment to appreciate the work you've put in today. Notice how you feel in your body now compared to before the class. And with a sense of heaviness in the head and the neck, begin to roll down for the final time. Reaching the floor, feeling again like that jellyfish that we talked about at the start of class, fluid in the ocean, rolling with the waves. As we exhale, we slowly begin to restack, coming tall, spine elongated, and you are done. Thank you so much for joining me with this class. This is my first class teaching, so hopefully it'll only get better from here. I'm totally open to all feedback, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Hopefully I'll see you again soon.